Star Wars 7x7 episode 1823 today. The extended gameplay for Jedi Fallen Order was released just the other day, and we're going to talk about all the interesting little things that we learned by getting to see it. Let's go. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. And here is the situation. So back in June, amazing to say back in June, happy July 1st, by the way, if you're catching it on July 1st. If not, well, I hope you had a happy July 1st, but be that as it may. During the E3 Entertainment Expo, Electronic Entertainment Expo, that happened in June, the fine folks at Respawn Entertainment, in cooperation with Lucasfilm and Electronic Arts, released 13 minutes of gameplay footage from Jedi Fallen Order, which was fascinating in and of itself. But there were also reports of an additional segment of footage that was only shown to the media at that time that depicted more of the gameplay, and particularly the gameplay that happens right before the gameplay that was released to the general public. Well, now they've finally seen fit to release that extra secret footage of the gameplay that happens. And so that's essentially what we're here to be talking about today. So as reported, it involves the River of Origin. Now that part I think was left out of previous reports, but a place on Kashyyyk called the River of Origin, which sounds really neat. And yes, we do get to see a couple of very brute-like Imperial walkers striding through the river, and they are not the kinds that we've seen in The Empire Strikes Back, and not quite the cargo ones like we saw in Rogue One. I've read things that say they're more like what we've seen in Star Wars Rebels, so I'll take the the word for it on that analysis, but anyway, so one of them apparently has been slogging through rivers and jungle quite a lot because it's mud covered, full of vines and whatnot, and so that of course naturally creates a situation for you playing the character of Jedi Cal Kestis to be able to climb up easily onto this Imperial Walker, at least easily from a gameplay perspective. There is a hatch at the back, which I don't remember Imperial Walkers having a hatch like this, but it's kind of a hatch like the hatch at the top of those Scout Walkers, like the one in Return of the Jedi, for example, that Chewbacca and Ewoks take over. But luckily, there's a hatch like that on the back third of the back of this Imperial Walker, and a trooper that is poking out of the hatch with a pair of macro binoculars is in the wrong place at the wrong time, because there's a Wookiee gunship that comes flying by, strafing the walker, and that trooper, unfortunately for him, gets the worst of it, and that's how Cal is able to get inside the walker. It's really cool to be inside a walker, I have to tell you. Like, that is kind of exciting in its own way, and there's a place where he finds a speeder bike, he hops on the speeder bike, but he can't actually fly it, though it'd be kind of funny to fly a speeder bike on the inside of this thing, yeah, I would say. And it has a blaster cannon on it, so it could do some significant damage. But anyway, he lurks through the cramped confines of the walker until he gets to a passenger cabin, and they're dealing with another crew fatality in there. But the moment that he jumps out to fight these people, there's an exclamation from one of the troopers, "It's the Jedi!" And that's really kind of an interesting exclamation, at least as depicted in the gameplay footage. They call it alpha game footage, which I presume means that they have more refinements to make to it and that this may not be final. But the reason why I think it's kind of unusual is because at the moment you hear them exclaim, "It's the Jedi," Cal doesn't even have his lightsaber in his hand. It's still on his belt. And so that to me suggests that his presence is already known on Kashyyyk. They already know that there's a Jedi lurking around. And so this whole River of Origin business, this means that he's been on Kashyyyk for a while and doing other kinds of damage. So we're definitely not being dropped into the point of the story where it begins, at least the Kashyyyk portion of the story. No, we're being dropped into the middle of that story. And as previously depicted, and discussed here on the show. He gets control of the walker, he starts shooting up a landing pad, and a shuttle does not quite get away. It manages to crash into his walker and take it down. And in the meantime, Saw Gerrera has shown up and said, "Who are you?" And then after the walker crashes, he's definitely not pleased. Like, we could have used that sucker. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't quite go well, but I mean, it goes as well as it can be for Saw Gerrera. He's certainly interested enough in seeing a Jedi. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, as well as Cal introducing him to his crew in just a moment. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. So, all we know for sure at this point is that Cal's mission is to find Tarful, who is, of course, a Wookiee chieftain from Revenge of the Sith that we saw, and he is the freedom fighter, not just a freedom fighter. He is the freedom fighter, according to Saw Gerrera. And there are Wookiees that are being used as slave labor who might, in fact, be guerrilla fighters who may be able to help Cal find Tarful, and so that's where the whole freeing of the Wookiee slaves thing comes in. But in addition, after introducing Saw to Seer and Grease, who are his companions on this journey, and Saw goes off to meet with his team, and Cal discusses his, journeys and whatnot with Seer. One of the things that Seer points out is that Saw's objectives may not match with what their objectives are, and so Cal should be very careful with whatever it is that Saw is up to. And that, of course, is a very good warning when it comes to Saw Gerrera, and it's nice to see that, follow through about, who Saw Gerrera is and the kind of thing that he might get up to, or the kinds of activities he might get up to, and that it might not be in line with other people's behavior or goals or anything like that. It's good to see that story and that kind of interaction and dynamic being carried through to Jedi Fallen Order as well. So there you go. That is the scoop of what you need to know from a story perspective about Jedi Fallen Order, about that hidden gameplay section that was finally revealed to us just last week, actually. And that is going to do it for this episode of the show as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.